Okay. I meant to film this 2 weeks ago and then was overcome with the plague. Actually, I got Tdap vaccine and got sick. And then 2 different hurricanes happened. So I'm finally able to do this. So exciting, so good. So I saw Carrie Can Read do this in a video that at this point came out 5 months ago, but that's even better for, like, you know, circling the wagons, gathering the crops, getting the children, enjoying things. So I don't have a script for this. I just have, like, timelines. I didn't bring them in here now that I think about it. So, like, the video is books that I grew up reading. You know, effectively, you wouldn't have survived the asylum where they raised me type beat, you know? So I don't have a lot of my, like, I read a lot in middle school, like a lot, to the point that when I was, like, figuring out where things needed to go, I didn't donate them. I sold them to used bookstores and stuff, because a lot of my books I actually got from my public library doing book reading. And the books were like $1, 50 cents, 75 cents. Perfect for growing your collection. So, like, obviously outside of, like, Dr. Seuss and those, which I actually still have mine, I was reading the Magic Tree House books and Junie B. Jones. I have a very distinct memory of my first set of getting my first set of Junie B. Jones books, either at the book fair or just, like, ordered in the catalog, the Scholastics catalog, and reading the first couple around the time that my mother got sick and my tragic backstory. I'm not getting into my tragic backstory, but I have these books because I thought they would be important to me 10 years ago when I put them in my closet. This is, I needed to, like, repackage this, which is why I was like, okay, I'll do a video on it. Let's see if this is sharp enough. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh, I haven't opened this yet. So in here is Jamaican history that I got as a tourist when I visited my home country when I was 9. Fascinating. So, yeah, we're just gonna go through some of these. Junie B. Jones, first graders. So this is her sequel series. Aloha, ha ha ha. They're so thin now that I'm, like, an adult. Like, 60 pages. My God, they're so thin. I'm terrified of them. We were Amelia Bedelia family. Like, a lot of people talk about Amelia Bedelia and, like, autism coding. Like, Amelia Bedelia is really interesting as far as, like, American child of immigrant, where only one of your very, very military child, where one of your parent is an immigrant and you're, like, entrenched in, like, Americanism, and that they're, like, trying their best. You're like, you as a child, you don't have the, obviously they are trying their best and they're trying to explain things. I don't know how I ended up with 2 different Hawaii books. I very remember buying them very close together. $4. I miss when books were cheap. High Tide in Hawaii with Magic Tree House and The Night at Dawn. I feel like I had other Junie B. Jones books. That's suspicious. But I also had the first 1 through 4, 5 through 8 Magic Tree House books. And I looked it up because I was out and I saw the one at my local bookstore, and it was, like, takes up its own, like, micro section. And it was, like, there are over 100, like, in production currently, and I think, like, some of them are out of production now. So I have those, And then through second grade, I was reading chapter books. I was picking up like reading momentum very quickly. And so in third grade or so, second grade, I fell in love. So for my 10th birthday, the theme was Tinkerbell. Not third birthday, for my 10th birthday, which was in third grade, the theme was Tinkerbell, and it got me really into, and these are much more well preserved because they were beautiful, so I wanted to like keep them. Disney fairy books. Back Beyond the Sea, Ducey's Taste of Magic, Rainy and the Mermaid Lagoon. I cannot get into my beef with like the movie series because they didn't have any of the book characters, and I love the book characters. I had a drawing instruction book that might be in my like web of items that were, you know, teaching you how to make them, and I would just draw fairies all day. Yeah, I remember this. This came with the movie when we pre-ordered the movie. It even has featuring the original movie. It is uncracked. She stresses me out. It has all the fairies from the movies. And I think what also bothers me is that they have the same art style. So it's like, bring in my girls. So fascinating. I don't want to crack the spine on this very well preserved book, so that's why I'm not going to go through it. But we have one of my favorites, Fira and the Full Moon. This Harrington-ass font. And I'm very confident that it's Harrington. And she was black, and so she was obviously my favorite. She's very beautiful. Like, she was black, and she was also very beautiful. And, like, because of the writing style, like, she wasn't, like, overly precocious and sassy, but there were multiple black ones. We'll get there. The Trouble with Tink, the first book. Again, like, these books are relatively short. Like, these are 100 pages. In theory, I could cover these. But I would do them as just like one big video, but well, you know, let me know. Again, Lily, she's beautiful. I love Lily. She's got textured hair and a black nose and the green, like, gardening as her special interest is like inherently not a like sissy prissy kind of, and I'm a sissy prissy girl, but when every black character you're seeing is sissy prissy girl, like, it's so cool to be able to have one that's just like beautiful, obviously, but also like in touch with nature and doing stuff very, what is her name? The one that forages on TikTok, very her. But yes, Vidalia and the Fairy Crown, she was a villain. Well, she was a rival to Tink, and she was zesty, gay. Fascinating. I feel like I feel compelled to cover these now, but like when I am older and have like a display of books, I'm definitely going to. These my click books are so beautiful to me. Like I love them. We have Tink, North of Neverland. And these were not, I will get to it, give it a second. Tink, North of Neverland is another book. Here we go. And the last one from the like original 4, I think, is a masterpiece for Bess, and she's an art fairy. She's art hoe. So cool. Like, and I love how saturated in color everything is. Like, I love the color in here. I was terrified that something bad had happened to my books because they were just like rattling around, but they were just up in my closet. Tink, obviously my first one, before I really had a full grasp on like where I was gonna store my books, she got taken around, but they're like covered, they've got like glitter and sets in them. It's very cool, very cool. Rainy, I loved Rainy. Sad mermaid with no wings. Like, I would love to cover, like, I feel like I'm gonna read them now, just because like there's such an angle with like ableism and body differences that can be so interesting. In my introduction to reading, like I was born in 1998, and so I think we only had like 2 years of my educational life where the like Papa John's pizza party was a thing. Like I did it every time, but we were readers in this family, and so I filled those out and like weirded out. I do remember getting one personal pizza by that, and I'd read it. I remember being mad because I had read enough to get 2, and they were like, well, it's not for this season. It's like, I'm gonna game your system. But my school was an AR system, so you would read the books and take the quizzes, and I very distinctly remember that those books were not in the AR system. So those were books I read during the summer, when it didn't count. And they were just so beautiful. I got really good at AR reading, and so I read for points a lot, like 100-point years, many years. Like very much like shout out to the great skin influencer Nefertiti, who I went to school with and was also on Reading Bowl because I was in Reading Bowl. And so a lot of, oh my god, I forgot. I never actually finished reading this. It stressed me out. I think it's because the canon of these books was never like quite clear, but like look how beautiful this book is. Like these are display pieces. This is Fairy Dust and the Quest for the Egg. And there were like 2 or 3 of these like bigger ones that were more like novel styles. I never liked when my okay, it's about voting. Like I never liked when my books were this big. They were just like really unwieldy to read. They're huge though. Quite beautiful with like gorgeous illustrations. Oh my god. My other childhood obsession, paint chips. We got a Lowe's with like a full paint section. It was quickly after the recession, and so it was just like, look at all these illustrations. I feel like I will cover them at some point. But they're all part of the Disney Fairies brand. Oh no! Okay, it folds out. I was like, oh no, diva down. Yeah. Okay, so where was I? 3rd grade. I either wasn't in Reading Bowl yet, or I was going to join Reading Bowl, and thus started reading. Also, I had a friend who had an entire children's encyclopedia library of these great classics illustrated, and I would borrow her books. Oh my god! This one's hers. Oh, I won't dox them. But I would read through these, and that's actually how I was introduced to one of my first great loves. So, my great love was first reading The First Little Women. I think I'd read it first, and then we read it for class. And then we read one of the like children's abridged versions, and I was like, I'm just gonna continue reading this, which we will loop back to. So whatever year I ended up reading that was the first year that I did Reading Bowl, and I read 3 books. Gossip, like you need to read 5 of them. I'm just very good at educated guesses. I read Gossamer that year, which I did used to have. My parents actually got me the audiobook because the physical book wasn't out because it was very competitive to get on Reading Bowl. Like it was really hard to take notes to make questions because in the state of Georgia, Helen Ruffin Reading Bowl is where you take books that are, I don't believe they are the Schneider Award. I think both of these just happen to be Schneider Award winners, but they were these award-winning books. And they were on the list, and you read them, and then you answer questions first at your level based off of questions. Like, you don't know what the questions are going to be. You just read the book and you read it so thoroughly. And now I would annotate it, but you would read the book so thoroughly that you would know the questions. So what we would do is we'd read these books, we'd read the books over and over again. Well, really, I would read the book like once or twice. We'll get to the ones where I really put my whole, fist into it. But you would read the books however many times. You would look for questions that are good questions. You don't want to just be asking. Sometimes you do just ask the question like, was Flippy's shoe red? And like that might be on there. I was in Reading Bowl from the time that I was 10 until I went to high school, because like you could join the public library's Reading Bowl team, but the high school did not have a Reading Bowl team, and I was not interested in doing that. There were lots of things I was not interested in doing, and that was one of them. Like, my sister did Girl Scouts and soccer, and I did Reading Bowl and soccer, and I hated soccer. So there's a couple of books that I own purely because of Reading Bowl. I think I gave the first one to my little cousin because he was going to do Reading Bowl around the same time that I did, but I think the Reading Bowl fell apart around the time that the people under me graduated, so he wasn't super available for him to do. But I had the first book of these. The name of this book is A Secret. I realized very quickly, not into mystery, not into psychosis, not into, like, I'm not a mystery girly. I like detective books, don't like mysteries. Like, that are purely made for obfuscation. These two books, and I'm so glad I kept them. These two books are both, like, And So Be It, the book that's being adapted currently by Disney. There are a couple of books that are like, these elementary and middle grade books that were about mental illness. Specifically, these were about autism and family members who were sick, unwell, different. As a child of disabled parents, this was like, yeah, of course, water's wet. But to answer the questions, my personal favorite is the fact that we never got to go to state because we'd always get bumped at regionals. I was so pissed. My 8th grade year, we went to regionals, and the question was, was it So Be It? It might have been anything but typical. But it was someone needed to buy diapers, and it was like, what did she pack? And person on our team answered diapers. We would go to Statesboro. True, this is 5 hours away. I was so mad. The person answers Pampers, and the correct answer, we were first given the point, and then the coach for the other team challenges it, and it's like, no, it's diapers, it's not Pampers. They pull out the book. It's fucking diapers. I was so mad. It's been 15 years. So I read through a whole bunch of illustrated classics, Little Women's illustrated classic. I remember after we did Reading Bowl my first year, I'm gonna say 4th grade. I think I might have just been hanging around the library in 3rd grade, but I don't remember. And I remember we almost always go to regionals. And so we'd come back, like, Reading Bowl happens mostly in, like I'm gonna tell you, like, part of the reason, like, obviously trauma, but, like, part of the reason I have, like, generally very positive memories of, like, high school. I did not, with schooling for the most part. I was in the library. Megan, minding her business in the library. My very cozy memory is that we would do Reading Bowl. Reading Bowl would pick up in October. We would do, we do team stuff, prep, then the fall book fair would happen. We would, if you were on, you could sign up to be on book fair, but if you were on the Reading Bowl team, you were almost assumedly also going to be on book fair. So we would set up book fair, run that for the week, 10 days I think that it might run, and then do takedown, You get your little book. And then that would normally be like November. I just have such cozy memories of being in that library, reading all the note classics section. I very distinctly remember I read one of the copies of Little Women. So I remember distinctly when I came home, I finished reading Little Women when I was putting the books away. I was going through them and I see that there are multiple copies, huge copy of Little Women that was as big as the biggest book in this, and about this thick, over 1,000 pages, the like full version of Little Women. And I was like, oh, I gotta read that. I remember coming home with it and reading it, and my dad being like, well, do you know when the next list of Reading Bowl books are coming out? And I was like, no. I was like, well, do you want to read those? And I remember being like, no. Like, I just remember thinking, no, I'm not worried about it. It's like, well, you want to get on the team next year. You want to be prepared. I didn't, like, that was then that I realized my dad has no chill about supporting me in any activity that I want to do. And that the activity that I was doing and, like, the sport I was participating in and that I had friends from was Reading Bowl. And he wanted to make sure that I was the best at Reading Bowl. And that kind of meant being insufferable about Reading Bowl. So Waiting for Normal. Addie's Waiting for Normal, but Addie's mother has an all or nothing approach to life. A food fiesta or an empty pantry, her way or no way. All or nothing never adds up to normal, and Nick can bring Addie all to home where she wants to be with her half-sisters, but Addie never stops, hoping that one day maybe she'll find normal. Dying to Meet You, book about death. Children need that. This one, autism. This child just has autism. Jason Blake is an autistic 12-year-old boy living in a neurotypical world. Most days, it's just a matter of time before something goes wrong. But Jason finds... Okay, so I've talked about previously reading books from the public library and being in love with them. And that's how we end up with the Click books. We also end up with... Oh my god. I bought this book at the book fair. Book that I just came across because I learned somewhere in this time period that I love consumerism. And I think I found the first book in the library, which is why I only own this one. But I think I found this one first, and it was so... I don't normally like illustrated books, but I love dolls. And this one was fascinating to me. This is like Toy Story for bad bitches. This is The Meanest Doll in the World, the sequel to The Doll People, which maybe I will find a copy of The Doll People to procure for you. But this is a book about Toy Story-like dolls. This family of dolls that live in a Victorian dollhouse. Roly-poly-oly also doll that is there. I think the magic system is that if they are found, if they are like caught, they are stiff for a little bit, and then if they are like, after a while they're able to like recover from it, but they can be stuck like that if they don't recover from it. And there's just like, it's just about dolls and friendship. Is there anything more me than dolls and friendship? I don't think so. But I have the second book, and you can see this is early on in my like book preservation journey where I was duct taping all my spines. I know I keep like looping around back to like Reading Bowl. We fully moved out of like my middle school reading. Like, am I gonna bring you all of my collect books? No. Something happened. My fun fact about me is that I've never read Twilight. Just couldn't get into it. We recouped back in middle school. Which is filled with doing Reading Bowl and going to the Borders. We're going to the Borders because we used to have a Barnes and Nobles, and then the recession happens, and we won't get another Barnes and Noble for another like 6 years or so, and it's further down. But what survived a little longer, because I did end up going the way of the dodo, is Borders. And Borders had like a thriving teen section that like was just like filled with all sorts of things that like visually interest me. If I could have gone back, I would have bought so many more books, and the books were cheaper. They weren't anything like I was seeing in like the school library, because these are the books that I'm reading now, where like I would not have seen the A-list in my school's library, because it's about smoking, drinking, and fucking. And books like these, oh, I forgot to put a bookmark in here. Books like these, like, visually interest me. So after I read the first one of, after I read the second one that I found in the pile, and then I found this one, I wanted the third one, which all those videos are on my channel if you're curious about these. Secret of My Hollywood Life. A little surprise is that another one of those videos is coming, because I finished another book during the hurricane. And that, I found that, and then I found this, and I bought this one, and then I would end up buying the second one, and I bought the last one. Those were the kinds of books. But so I never read Twilight. This is from my local library. She's been through it. I'm fascinated by her. I'm so glad I have one of the original covers, because the new covers piss me off with it like written all big and like double lot. That pisses me off. But this beloved library classic is here, and one day I will read her. One day. Oh my god, it's been a, let me try not to dox myself, but it got released in 2011. Boy. So I had that, kind of finishing up like The Click. I was reading those in middle school. This is very distinctly like 7th grade. It's covered in lint. Oh, she's covered in lint. This is definitely like 7th grade going into 8th grade. And I wouldn't finish reading them because by the time I was going to high school, the climate around the books that we were reading will have shifted, and we'll get into it. I never actually read these, but I bought one from the used bookstore. If you remember my haul from like a year ago, is Never Judge a Girl by Her Cover, and all of these. I need to go back to the bookstore. Before we get into that, I know I keep saying before we get into it, because like it's such a game changer for me, is that, so I remember these were 8th grade picks. I love them. I found reading books with the little white girls on the cover to be just kind of jarring. I'm not like, I've never been like a putting myself as the main character person when I'm reading. I feel like I am along for a journey when I'm reading. I'm not involved in the journey, but these random ass white women did throw me. I love Just Ella. I tried to get into the other like not princessy Margaret Peterson Haddock series. I couldn't. But I really loved these two, Just Ella and Palace of Mirrors. Being a princess and all that. You've heard of Fairy Tale, Glass Slipper, Prince Charming, Happily Ever After, Welcome to Reality, Royal Genealogy, Lessons, Needlepoint, Acting Like a Proper Lady, and worst of all, a prince who's not the least bit interesting and certainly not charming. As soon-to-be Princess Ella deals with her newfound status as she comes to realize she is not your majesty material, but breaking off a royal engagement is no easy feat, especially when you're crushing on another boy in the palace. For Ella to escape, it will take intelligence, determination, and spunk, and no ladylike behavior allowed. And Palace of Mirrors. Cecilia knows that she's not just another peasant girl. She's actually the true princess in hiding until evil forces that killed her parents are vanquished. A commoner named Diesma is on the throne as a decoy. As she gets older, Cecilia finds it harder to study statesmanship and pals protocol secretly at night, and then pretend that she has nothing on her mind other than scrubbing the gruel stains out of her best apron by day. Cecilia knows that it's time to take charge. Along with her best friend Harper, she flees to the capital city, determined to reclaim her throne and face the danger head on. When Harper and Cecilia reach the famed Palace of Mirrors, they discover complications. Princess Diezma believes an entirely different version of the story. So, I love Princesses in Hiding. I love face-swapped ass bitches. I really loved this book. I love the, like, friends to lovers of Harper and Cecilia. Spoiler alert for a book at least 20 years old. I need to stop doxing myself in these books. 2008. Oh my god. 60. All of these things happen. All of those books are read in a culmination of my reading experience. I was too young for Harry Potter. I don't really actually give a shit about Harry Potter. Like, we read all the books. Like, I have, like, tragic backstory stuff related to Harry Potter. That's not my tragic backstory, but it is sad that I'm not going to get into. But, like, Harry Potter was, like, a big part of my childhood. A big part that I did not care about. I read The Hunger Games for Reading Bowl, and I need to see how fucked up this book is. I let a friend of mine, my best friend at the time, who was also on Reading Bowl team, read it. She was reading it. She had like a rough home life, and she was reading it while she was dyeing her hair. So like certain chunks of my book were read for a little bit. I think most of those parts are gone, but I loved this book. Loved it. Loved it. And then I went on to high school, and I hadn't read the second book, but everyone was talking about it, and I remember this girl that I very much wanted to be like best friends with was talking about it, and so I read it, and like I reread The Hunger Games. This is my, like, I'm like a very basic girl. Like, I know that. I know this about myself. I'm never going to make fun of like the read another book crowd, because I'm very simple to please. Like, currently I think I have to reread it just to make sure it's as good as I remember. I think currently my favorite book is Mistborn, or Fall of the Empire. But before that, this was my favorite book. Oh my gosh. Like, fake romance that's actual romance, a fake baby plot, a sequel where like blessed be, like, we couldn't have gone back to the Hunger Games a third time, but like the sequel where the fact that they like go back and its ante's even more upped. This book changed me as a reader. Like, if I had had more unfiltered internet access, I would not be coming to you as girl who likes to talk about things because she doesn't feel like she has anyone to talk about. I would be an online internet cult leader. I would be talking about this book nonstop, writing fan fiction. You know, Burke, Professor Alpha, and how she talks about supernatural. That would be me with these book series. It was like crack. I very distinctly remember when this book came out, and no one could get it in the library, and I was halfway through reading my library copy when the scholastics. So we ordered it. I ordered it because I had the most expendable income of my friends, and we ordered it, and I was halfway through the library copy when it came in, so I finished reading it on my copy of the book. I do have my sleep. My sleep is under my bed because I keep my sleep safe that way. And I distinctly remember, like, I remember later on I was like, oh god, they had like the anniversary copies of the book, and I feel like I would be putting down my best friend if I replaced her. Hold up, like I am so devoted to this shit. When the first movies came out, if you pre-ordered it, I don't think I have it at hand. I have all of my, like, I have all of my Hunger Games merch, like, and, like, all the stuff, like, I wasn't into Twilight, I was into the Hunger Games. Like, the Hunger Games was it for me, honey. Work my pussy out. And I ended up being friends with that person up until, like, the pandemic. And, like, you just, like, life diverges. Yeah, that's fine. But, like, it was very important. Like, very... So, in an attempt to be on the ground floor of, like, books, movies, trends, it was very important to be, like, up on your shit. I tried to read Divergent, and, like, in between all of these books that I'm showing you and all the books that I couldn't show you because I've donated them, I was reading, like, audiobooks as well with my family, and we got Divergent, and I could follow Divergent 1 because I had read it with my own eyes. Anything past the first book doesn't make no goddamn sense to me. Like, I would come home from school, like, we're reading hardboiled detective novels, James Patterson, spy thrillers, like I said, the Mistborn series, some other series that I really enjoyed that I cannot remember the name of. You know how big a hurt that is, where you, like, listened and, like, read something, you just can't remember what it was, but it was, like, so good. Like that, like, we read, like, so many. I wouldn't always be in the car when, like, the books are being read. That was fine. Context clues. I could put 2 and 2 together. I could be gone for 8 hours. I could be gone at school, and the only time my dad was listening to it was, like, the 10-minute max drive back home, and then, like, maybe waiting 20 minutes in the car. We'd be in a whole other plot point. Girl, these books were ass. So I kind of was drawn away from reading by Divergent. I did not like it. I didn't like reading modern. I wanted something that I knew was going to be a classic, but again, limited internet access. And if you, like, type in, like, a list of best books, you're gonna get a whole bunch of lit fic, dreary books that even now as an adult I cannot stomach. They make me, like, I feel like an idiot sometimes because, like, people who I respect as, like, very interesting and intelligent thinkers. Also, we'll get back to it, my bookmark of choice, leopard print duct tape. So, like, imagine the widest set of bootcut jeans or dark wash, a sickly green hoodie, a purse backpack, because I didn't carry backpacks because my sister carried backpacks and she got scoliosis, so my parents did not play that. Walking around with this under her arm. I'm a terror. I'm a scourge. Thick eyebrows. I have great eyebrows, but they were thick. They were doing things. This, like, I put it in there and it felt correct. I, like, reopened the tomb. But what I was saying is that I sometimes feel a little stupid because I can't get into, like, lit fic. I can't get into lit fic. I can't get into, like, every time I think maybe I'll be able to get into something, it ends up being, like, tremendously sad, like, little life. Like, I just cannot. I was just, like, I trusted my cousin who is, happy birthday, 5 years older than I am, so he was into Twilight and then was like, okay, I'm done with Twilight. What am I gonna read? And so I inherited a collection, and if he wants them back, he can't have them. A collection of vampire romance novels. So this one's mine, actually, but I do have a lot of his. House of the Night marked. And I will read these at some point. There's just a lot of them. And that's kind of not the vibe of the channel right now. We're, like, very girly right now. I don't need to bring in a horror book. And so I was kind of waffling through this. This is Night World, and it includes 3 books. These are by L.J. Smith. They're so thick. They were always super overwhelming to me. Oh! But looping back to, and these were always super available at Barter's. As we were coming out of, like, my young adult, like, dystopian thing, I just wasn't into dystopians. I moved into supernatural romances. These bad boys They were giving them away at the Borders. This is Shadow Falls. I never hear anyone talk about them. They all have such distinct name. PC Cass, LJ Smith, CC Hunter. So like, I love that certain genres just like have certain names. So again, these will be covered at a later point, but they're vampire, they're supernatural. Specifically, Morganville Vampires has all sorts of different vampires, but this one is, or this one's just vampires. I think this one is just like general magic users. I don't remember, so it's gonna be a real surprise to read them. And this is like I was trying to read this. The other girls were reading like the selection and marked, or not marked, there's the selection, the one with the girl with the dress, and then the one where it matched, the one where she's in the orb, iconic. So now we get into high school, like high school proper, and this is, some of these things are all overlapping and looping in time, but they are connected to different parts of like who I was as a person at that time. And one of the important things was that in my literature class, where I got good pats on the head for being a good little student, so I got to pick whatever book I did for my book report, and I did City of Bones. This is Clockwork Princess because I love a theme. I love Regency. I love a world. Like, have I been turned off by the world because the world has incest in it? Yes. But isn't it still like gorgeous? And like the books are pretty. If you scroll back on this channel, you will see that there was an attempted series where I was going to talk about ACOTAR. And Sarah J. Maas is a very polarizing figure. Less because she actually holds any power, and more to do with the fact that because a lot of people dealing out that held on to J.K. Rowling way longer than they probably should have. And that's just kind of how I feel about it. And so Cassandra Clare also falls into that like easy to dunk on girly, I'm not like the other girls girl books that like is still an acceptable way of doing a touch of misogyny. You know, your City of Bones is your gateway drug to your ACOTAR. Your ACOTAR is your gateway drug into face smut books. Face smut books being a gateway drug into normal smut books, and then you're at Colleen Hoover breeding kink and you're able to dunk on women because that's not real literature. I'm not sad enough, like, you know, because like I might be stupid. These are books that I have read 2 of them, and then I haven't read another 2 of them. So again, this one happened because I needed, it was like buy one get one free. My ephemera's gonna fall off. There used to be another price sticker on here. Fascinating. So I needed another one and I couldn't figure out which one was the first book. So I accidentally ended up with a sequel, and so I haven't read this book that I've owned for 15 years. Because I picked up the wrong book, and every time I go to my local bookstore, because I'm determined to buy at my local bookstore or at a smaller chain, I keep forgetting and then not buying it. Mind you, I got this for $4, and I think buying the sequel would make it cost like this one. Okay, so at the time I got it for $4. It was normally on sale for $18. I hate hardcover books. That's why all my books are paperback, cheaper price point. But yeah, so there's this one. Again, another Hush Hush has fallen angels and the half-human offspring of fallen angels and their descendants, and a whole lot of sexual tension mixed in just to complicate matters. MTV.com. Nora Gray's life is still Nora Gray, normal Gray life. My God. Nora Gray's life is still far from perfect. Surviving an attempt on her life wasn't pleasant, but at least she got her guardian angel out of it. A mysterious, magnetic, gorgeous guardian angel. But despite his role in her life, Patch has been acting anything but angelic. He's more elusive than ever, if that's possible. And what's worse, he seems to be spending time with Nora's archenemy, Marcy Miller. Nora would have hardly noticed Scott Purnell, an old family friend who has moved back to town, if Patch hadn't been acting so distant. Even with Scott's totally infuriating attitude, Nora finds herself drawn to him, despite her lingering feelings that he's hiding something. If that weren't enough, Nora is haunted by images of her murdered father and comes to the question whether her Nephilim bloodline has anything to do with his death. Desperate to figure out what happened, she puts herself in increasingly dangerous situations to get an answer. But maybe some things are better left buried because the truth could destroy everything and everyone she trusts. Why is this literally new moon? Why is this literally new moon? Or eclipse? Why is this literally eclipse and new moon? Girl, if you don't get your love triangle ass away from your Jacob, a new Jacob, just slapping Jacobs in. And Jacobs. So, I haven't read that book, because I haven't read the first one yet. And I'm already a little harsh on it, but I'm always harsh on most things that I love. And this, because I knew, by the time I bought this, I knew that I was going to be doing this as my hobby. So, I was talking about Borders. It wasn't a Borders that was... There was a Borders there, but it was switched out actually for Books A Million. And so, in some of this point, some of those books that I was discussing comes from Books A Million. I still prefer to buy my books from Books A Million. This big-ass copy of Pretty Little Liars... Book 1 and 2 from Sarah Shepard was only freaking $11. That's great. So the reason is that, like, obviously I'm drawn to, like, the doll motif on the books, but also the show came out, like, my freshman year of high school, maybe my sophomore year, and so it was everywhere, and, like, half the books were always checked out. Half the first couple of books were always checked out. So I could never read them. And when I would wander around in the young adult section trolling for things to fill my whole... I don't know what I was going with that one. To fill, like, something inside me, an emptiness. I would see all of the line of books and be, like, amazed. Same with Gossip Girl, but Gossip Girl was actually, like, ahead of my time. So, like, the Gossip Girls were there underneath these, but, like, they were very rarely ever checked out, and I just, like... There's, like, also a little bit of, like, I don't think I was allowed to read the Gossip Girl books, because they had, like, the sex and drug thing. My parents were making sure I was not gonna die about that. Beautiful Creatures, which I'm happy to announce will have a video coming soon. Sometime between now, midway through October, and probably January. I don't know how long it's going to take me to really think about it, but I own this book. I own the second book on ebook. I read it for a class. It's like, so, it's, again, this one was made into a movie, so there'll be a movie video that comes with this. It's Southern Gothic. I love I live in the South. I live in the, like, South. And so there's Spanish moths and there's graveyards and it's spooky and it floods. And is it a ghost or is it a gator? I got screamed at by a deer 2 weeks ago. So, like, I love the idea of these books. I can recognize that they're probably bad. There's like 4 of them. I think I have them all on audio currently. I'm gonna read through them and then I'm gonna report back to you and tell you all guys about it. Lastly in this pile, and it kind of feels silly that this is the last one in the pile, but this was like the last book I read in high school. I was taking a web design class, something that gave me my passion for doing this hobby of, like, video editing and things. Is, like, I learned how to build websites and, like, color theory and generally how these kinds of design properties work. And we were allowed to listen to music. Everyone else was listening to music. And I would listen to audiobooks. And I listened to Cinder And it was so hard because it was like a legal copy, an illegal copy, so it wasn't like I could, like, the chapters were so long, and so sometimes I would come back to it and I'm like, where was I? Where are we? And I was reading this book my senior year until I finished. I finished this book, and then I didn't start any other books because I was busy trying to graduate and playing approximately 12 hours of Animal Crossing. I played a lot of Animal Crossing. And this is not my, obviously not my copy because I was listening to it on an audiobook. But what I did is I bought a new copy, but I actually own the rest of the other books in the correct format. And this one didn't match. It had the girl on it. And so Miriam owned a copy. And this is going on my second channel. Miriam is my best friend. Miriam owns the other copy. Is my chest gonna be indecent? It's kind of a lot today. I swapped with them, so they have this copy and I have their old copy, and I haven't figured out how to get the crayon off of it. And if anyone knows how the crayon can get off of it without ruining my book, be much obliged to you. I ended up reading, like, because I had free time, I ended up, like, bulldozing through Crest and Scarlet. I think I'm in Crest. I think I bulldozed through Scarlet, and I love those books as well. I know, obviously, but, like, I truly, like, I remembered how much I loved physically reading those, and that was, like, 4 years before I started doing this, and, like, really, actually, like, 6 years. Like, 6 years before I realized, like, how much I love reading, and how much I love, like, even if they're, like, not good, like, physically reading with your eyeballs is so nice for me. I really love it. Yeah. But these are the books that raised me. A little tour through all the books that I have, like, physically. There are some other ones. Hopefully I remember to get, like, clips of them. I'm probably not going to. I never do. But yeah, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok at Megan_blush_, where I'm probably complaining about food or taking you on, like, a date night, like, thing. So, I'm gonna be finishing, at some point, I know it feels like I'm not, at some point I'm gonna be finishing the A-list series. I have a couple of videos in the works, that are scripted and stuff. More doll videos are coming. It's been really doll heavy. And so the people who subscribe for doll stuff, I'm so sorry. And the people who subscribe for book stuff and it's just been a lot of doll stuff, you about to be fed. Yeah. Bye. Bye, guys.